Broadcasting from the stages of London, this is Musical Talk, the UK's first independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Musical Talk. In case you haven't noticed, Lord of the Rings has recently opened in London's West End at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. And Tim, Dom and Kate, Dom's girlfriend, and myself were lucky enough to witness the performance this week, and we will be featuring a section where we are in the theatre discussing our views on it. In our second section this week, Tim, Thos and myself will be discussing the wonderful musical that is Ragtime. So, without further ado, let's transport you to Middle-earth, also known as the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, to discuss the huge musical production that is Lord of the Rings.
We are climbing the stairs in the Drury Lane. We've gone up a couple of flights, and I think there's about 20 more to go. Nick is here. Nick, what are your expectations of the show?
They're great.
They're very great expectations, but I'm afraid we're not seeing that. It's some other English work of literature. Okay, that's another flight done. Dom is here as well. Dom, your views?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I still don't know how they're going to do much music in it, though, but if it's a musical, it should be quite good.
Yes, well, is it a musical? This is our question. We've heard contradictory things.
I have heard that it is.
Our third flight is now down. We've done our third flight. Just to update. As you can hear, Dom is getting increasingly breathless as we go on.
He's singing musical.
Okay, we seem to have reached a sort of plateau in our journey. Do we have to go a little further? There's a bar ahead. Fantastic. We're now just in the auditorium, and we can see some. Well, it's a pretty big transformation of the whole Drury Lane Theatre, which is a pretty big theatre. Nick, can you describe what we're seeing?
Well, basically half the theatre is a forest, quite literally. If you think Wicked has a lot of vines, you should come and see Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It is particularly vine, women and song, in a way, we're expecting to see tonight. We have the stage is dominated by a giant, well, I can only describe it as a giant ring, quite frankly. That's all I can say about it. We have a number of hobbits on the stage. They're out there. They say Middle-earth comes alive 15 minutes before the performance. And
now 5 minutes before the performance.
Okay, and it's looking reasonably alive.
And we have quite a good view of the stage as well.
Yes, we can certainly see it pretty well from here. They've covered all of the boxes in all of this creeping foliage as well, which is kind of really fascinating.
They're also the worst seats in the house.
Yeah, it looks set to be reasonably spectacular, I have to say. Very full house.
There's a firefly flying around.
Describe what we're looking at.
I think Tinkerbell's in the show.
I knew she'd turn up somewhere. So, yes, there is a circulating firefly where...
Well, yeah, the hobbits seem to have taken an interest in it, and they're trying to catch it. While behind us, they're selling bottles of water and Maltesers. That's quite good.
That's exactly the Middle-earth experience I was kind of hoping for, I have to say. They're trying to catch this firefly and not having a great deal of success because it's obviously a torch. Maybe they will catch it eventually. The suspense, actually, I have to say, is almost hurting my liver. So look, let's just take a little straw poll. Nick, are you generally expecting to enjoy this?
Yes, because I like spectacle performances. I like shows with big sets and lavish effects and magic, and I can tell that this is going, and projections.
Right.
And I can tell that this show is going to have a couple of things. I'm at the moment staring at a couple of circular fans, which are...
I know, there's lots of fans of Lord of the Rings, and it's a pity the circular ones have to come and block our view.
No, I mean, there are real turbine fans.
I have to say my expectations are, I'm a little more jaded perhaps than Nick is. I've read the books, I've seen the films, I enjoyed the films. I'm not necessarily expecting, and we'll re-examine my views at the interval, this to be a very, very serious attempt to interpret the books. However, it may be, I'm certainly expecting spectacular. Kate, we need some of your views, your expectations of the Lord of the Rings. What do you think it's going to be like?
I don't really know what to expect right now. The stage looks good. There's some strange small people walking around on stage in costumes.
Hobbits, I think, is the technical term.
Hobbits, they're called. I don't really know what to expect, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll let you know. I'll let you know if it's lived up to my expectations.
Dom, generally positive or negative expectations at this point? I've been a bit cynical, so what about you?
Well, no, I'm quite positive. Like Guy said at the start, I don't really know what to expect, but the stage looks fantastic. I don't know how many trees they destroyed to make it, but it's really worth it for the theatre-going audience.
And something's going to happen in the middle there. Something in the middle, there's like a disc with a black bit in it. Something is going to appear, and I'm really excited about it.
It's their carbon footprint for killing all those trees. That's what it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to go into the show shortly, so we'll come back to you in the interval. Okay, so the curtain has just come down on Act 1 of The Lord of the Rings. In rapturous applause, a very enthusiastic reception here. Dom has some views. Dom?
Well, no, according to the accents of the cast, the hobbits come from Dorset.
That's correct. Or Bristol.
Or Bristol. Aragorn, is he kind of American? Is he, well, I thought Gimli was Welsh. The elves are all from the RSC. The elves are from the RSC. Boromir is Scottish. Yes. So obviously, then that means Mordor is in Scotland.
Mordor, as I believe is the correct pronunciation.
And they're protecting the Scottish-English border, and that's
like that whole Hadrian's Wall thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick.
Best musical I've ever seen? No.
It is a musical, though, isn't it? It definitely is a musical.
It took half an hour for there to be an applaud. This is not your typical, here's the song, here's the end, here's the applaud, here's the continuation.
But I mean, there are definite musical... I've counted about sort of 5 or 6 definite musical numbers, and...
There is a lot of diegetic music in here.
There is indeed diegetic music.
There's a lot of let's sing for a reason, not as opposed to let's...
Well, or not for very much of a reason, but let's just sing because we kind of, people in this world happen to sing. The thing is, my problem with that is that this is exactly what they cut normally from all of those sort of terribly long, sad-sounding folk songs, is what they normally cut from adaptations of Tolkien, like Tom Bombadil, and indeed is not here, but normally gets cut precisely because that stuff is so dull. And I'm sorry to see some of it here, but...
Well, no, actually, Kate and I had a brief discussion while Act 1 was happening. Very brief. A lot of the stereotypes are playing up here. One of them was they had one number which was when they got to the inn,
yes,
and it was kind of a hillbilly twang to it, and it was kind of like, you know.
Well, I must admit, I was thinking in the Bree number, in the Prancing Pony. Now, that number does have a plot function, which is that Frodo puts the ring... Well, I won't reveal the plot, but yes, I will actually. That Frodo puts the ring on at the end of it, although it doesn't really fulfill that function. I was just sitting here thinking 7 brides for 7 brothers, and it's where they're building the house. It's exactly that moment. They're doing all this leaping up and down on the planks and stuff.
There is a lot of... I can't remember the person who did the choreography for 7 brides for 7 brothers.
No, I can't.
But there's lots of his stuff in there. Lots of leaping off benches and things.
It's very sort of masculine, folk, athletic type of choreography.
It's good. The audience liked it.
Some things. I mean, we must. I must admit, I came in a little cynical. I came in a little cynical, and I'm afraid my opinion has gone down during the course of this act. The good things, however, are that the stagecraft is extremely impressive. And
I have a lot of difficulty working out what's happening. Someone's time.
No, well, I'm not surprised, to be honest, because they're racing through this extremely complicated plot at a rate of knots, with just like 1 or 2 lines given to concepts, and it's giving it a tremendous flatness. There's sort of the rapid delivery that they're doing is just really making it impossible to do any sensitive performances. And there's a lot of kind of the Brian Blessed school of portentousness going on, I think. You know, with these very pompous speeches.
Elrond, the leader of the elves, every R is and it's all just a bit much.
I think it's a little. I'm finding it a little much. However, we should say the stagecraft. Well, that was a thing called the Balrog, and I'm not surprised you didn't quite get. It's a very impressive, a very impressive effect. But that was a thing called the Balrog at Khazad Dûm, which I've read the books, as you can tell, listeners. That sort of doesn't quite kill Gandalf, but then again, kind of does. Well, anyway, we'll see. The Council of Rivendell, they've repeated there's a famous Ralph Bakshi animated version of this story, which he only ever made half of, actually. And the Council of Elrond, the Council of Rivendell, which it's just... It starts in the silliest way, with everyone going blah 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 rhubarb rhubarb rhubarb, and they suddenly just sort of try and recover from that. And I was having a jolly good giggle, I'm afraid. So
yeah, no, I just on that again. The number there was for me what I've dubbed the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bit, where they had a bit of choreography when they're all in one big line there, and that was
the Bree scene, the prancing pony.
Yeah, and I just thought, oh, is that popular now to do this kind of really hectic, but in many ways just minimal hand movements. On the beat, quick beat.
I have to also channel the spirit of Thos for a moment, because I think if he were here, one of the things he would be saying, well, he wouldn't enjoy it, and I'm afraid these are all the things that he likes least about Tolkien. So I think he'll be glad that he didn't come. That there's no humour, and the humour that is kind of a little bit leaden, frankly. And that seems a very perhaps slightly unfair thing to say after they've gone to all this effort.
Most of the humour I remember in the film comes from the love of food for the 2 hobbits.
It was always those two were the comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not okay. Look, I mean, it's not a barrel of laughs anyway. The Lord of the Rings, but I felt that
because he's giggling throughout the whole performance.
I'm afraid there are just too many moments of just sheer campness that I just cannot quite get over. My major problem here really is just the decision to have done it. And in a way, you know, full marks in a way for doing it, but it shows up how difficult it is. You know, there's just so much plot already. And then they add these numbers as well. And what the result is that you just end up cantering through this plot just with these tremendously fast delivered dialogue that gives you no room for sort of sensitivity or emotion or anything like that. It's like reading the book by flicking the pages and just skimming it. That's the problem. Yeah.
How many of Tolkien's lyrics are there in this score?
I'm not an expert, so I can't be certain, but I certainly... We didn't have The Road Goes Ever On and On, did we? Or did we have that early on? I think they've adapted some of them, as far as I can tell. We haven't... I think Gil-galad's coming up in the second half, so I don't think they're all... I mean, quite a few of them are definitely not. Like, the number that Arwen sings is definitely not a Tolkien lyric, as it were, you know, it's not by him.
Any of the Elvish chants and things, do we have any of those?
Well, they're in Elvish, so I'm afraid that's a little bit... My Elvish is a little rusty these days.
Speaking of the elves, they seem to be doing a lot of hand gestures, and I can't quite figure out, are they actually doing sign language, or have they invented
It's very camp, isn't it?
I don't get that. I could understand. I actually think it would have been quite nice if they were actually signing. You know, that would have been quite a nice...
It might have been a touch, yeah.
You know, but right now, just kind of... they're just leading, you know, signalling the audience way too much just by having that...
I must admit, I'm not buying it, I have to be honest.
We just talk about the design. I think the Lion King is a bit of an influence here, with the circles being a main motif. We're quite high up in the theatre, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a good view looking down on the stage, and there's lots of circles on the stage, and they look like the inside of tree trunks, don't they?
Yes, I feel the urge to be positive about this, because I think it's the hydraulics are very impressive, and what they're making them do, the computer control is very smooth, it's very neatly done. You can imagine just why they needed these 6 weeks of tech. Projections are being used a bit less than I expected, although I'm not missing them dreadfully, but we can't, or it's possible that we can't see from their angle, but also they're being used for reportage, which is good, and I wish they were using them more, because there's a lot of reportage and quite a lot of slow dialogue. Actually, having complained about the speed of the plot, there are moments of very tremendous slowness.
What do you think of the score?
Formulaic.
Actually, for me, I found some of the songs... I know it's hard. I can see why you'd call it a musical, but for sometimes, I actually think the time we better spent without some of the songs, I won't say which at this point in time, I want to see the next two acts, but without some of the songs, and just giving that time to the dialogue, to the plot line.
I'm very... I mean, I like musicals, but I'm very strongly in agreement with that. I think that's... Unfortunately, it's the desire for spectacle. I'd have liked some more spectacle. We did have a bit of good spectacle, which was kind of a conflation of the Weathertop battle, which they actually just reset to Bree, which was fine, where the hydraulics went mad.
Let's say what happened at the end of the first act. We're not going to give much away, but the whole theatre fills with smoke, doesn't it?
Well, I saw Slava Snow Show about 10 years ago, and the whole theatre filled up then with like absolute loads of ticker tape, and I'm afraid they haven't equaled that effect this time around.
What's the effect meant to be symbolising?
Basically, it's loads of sort of ash and cinder and stuff. We're at the sort of, not the cracks of doom, because that comes later. I'd be interested to see how they top it.
Yeah, it was quite choking. We're very high up, so imagine what it's like for the people down in the store.
Yes, I mean, they mostly did it with just a stage smoke.
Yeah, well, actually, there were quite a few fans operating, and this theatre has no air conditioning, so that was quite nice.
Yes, well, I was grateful, although it didn't give you the sense of heat coming off the magma.
No, quite the opposite, in fact, wasn't it?
Okay, Kate's over here. You're enjoying your ice cream, Kate. What are you making of it so far? We're one act into 3 acts, so it's a game of 3 halves. So we may see some changes. What have you made of it so far?
I'm really enjoying it, but what I think is most interesting is the accents. So I know in the film the orcs were Cockneys, but in this one it's interesting. You know, we've got a few Scottish accents. Everyone's from Dorset, which is very interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Do you think this is playing to the Dorset crowd well?
Well, probably I'm the only Dorset crowd member in the audience, but it's playing extremely well. I'm interested to see in the second act about the orcs and how they do that. Hopefully it won't be contemporary dance battles.
It looked to me like we've had 3 orcs on stage. The one had stilts on, and the ones that were talking to Saruman. So what about that?
Yeah, that was interesting. I'd like to see some more gory action. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
At the moment, my half-time report is, or a third of the way in report, is too many static scenes and too much reportage, and at the same time too many numbers. And I'm not feeling like I'm watching the story. I'm feeling like I'm watching an interpretation of it.
There are moments when I am quite bored because it's very hot up here, and it's nice to look at, but at some time you get bored of the scene to look at.
So we should have gone to Sunday in the Park with George. Then we could have. It's hot up here.
The audience are loving it, which is great, And
I was just about to make that point. There's a lot of young people in the audience here as well. Perhaps we should interview a young person, as it were, and find out.
Young.
Yeah, but you're not properly young. Well, let me ask you. What's your name?
Kieran Baruka.
Okay, right. So I've been taking notes through the show here. What are you taking notes about?
I'm studying theatre studies at A level, so I've come here to analyse this play. As part of my course, I have my A level exam next week.
Right.
So,
okay.
So
you're mugging up.
Yeah, pretty much. Just writing all sorts of things about lighting, staging, effects. Costume.
What are you making of the whole thing as an experience? Well, how would you review it?
My biggest worry, being a Lord of the Rings fan when I first came here, was how they were going to convey the sheer size of everything. I think they've done it superbly with quick set changes, the use of costume, lighting effects, the song as well. I think has been very important, and yeah, absolutely fabulous.
So pretty much a success.
Brilliant.
And the staging. What have you made of the staging?
The use of the levels and staging has been, well, for me as a drama student, very, very symbolic. It's amazing how they've, made it look like it's been going around for ages with just 30 metres of staging. It's fabulous.
Okay, good. We should hear from one or two. Come on, let's just get a couple of views. What have you made of the show?
It's great. It really is. It's amazing. I like the windy bit.
The windy bit at the end. Why? Because it cooled you down a bit.
A bit more of that will be good.
What do you think? Do you know Lord of the Rings quite well, Kieran?
Yeah.
So, we had the Balrog at the end of the first act. So what did you make of the realisation of that? Did people get what was going on? Nick didn't. Who doesn't know it.
Oh, right. I knew it, obviously, as a fan. I thought you could create it as some sort of creature, not obviously evident.
Demon that was killing him, sort of...
Well, fair enough, that's about it, exactly. It's along the lines. I liked the quick glimpse we had of the Uruk-hai and the orcs. They looked good, and I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Okay. Do you think people might be fans of the thing might be put off from coming to see it because they think it is a piece of musical theatre?
Possibly. Like I said, I was a bit anxious that they wouldn't be able to convey the sheer size of it, which is so apparently within the books and the film. But yeah, absolutely stunning.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much, Kieran.
Great review there. What special effects do we have to come up that you like to see? Well,
we can't be certain because obviously they are cutting a lot as they go through. Obviously, we have the cracks of doom themselves to turn up, and
that's awfully painful.
Yes, indeed. Well, I've had them, but I'm fully recovered now. Mount Doom and the entrance to Mordor. There's a lot of battle scenes. For example, Isengard is a major part of the Two Towers in the second book. Whether we'll get to see a lot of that, I don't know, because we haven't seen a lot of battle-y things yet, have we? There's a battle in the Mines of Moria, which they don't really do in this production, which I think was very wise, considering how well it was executed in the film. My views are coloured quite a bit by the fact that I've seen the films, and the films are such a spectacular realisation.
I'm glad to see how theatrical the design is, though. We have heavy use of sheets for, the old-fashioned style of using water for sheets for water. And there's lots of theatrical elements, and you can tell they're not influenced by the film at all. No,
it's they are a bit, but I think it is slightly cinematic in points. But I think certainly it's a piece of theatre.
The lighting is fantastic.
Yes, wow. What's particularly noticeable about it is that it really is very immersive, and
the lighting almost moves the action along, which I've never seen before. The lighting sort of. And if you notice, the turntable is moving, the lights are going in the other direction, so it's hard to see that the turntable is actually moving. It puts Les Miserables to shame, really. This.
Yes, well, I think it's certainly influenced by it, but also, yes, I think it certainly is considerably more sophisticated. I can't remember the last time I've really seen the sophistication of stage control on this scale. Possibly never, actually. I don't think I've ever seen anything.
That's what a lot of people are saying. They've never seen anything visually amazing as this show.
Well, I have seen things that are kind of nigh on, but I haven't seen precisely these sorts of effects.
There really is nothing I've ever seen like this, and we're back to start again.
I think Middle Earth is about to reopen, so we'll talk to you after the second and third acts. Well, there's the kind of reception you're getting here. Just in between Acts 2 and 3 now of The Lord of the Rings.
An orc has now broken into the level of seating where we are. If you listen carefully, you may hear some screaming.
I think their job is to prevent people actually leaving during this rather short interval. So we'll have to... Very handsome orc, clearly. Anything to add to what we talked about in Act 1?
Well, I mean, the fighting with the orcs...
It was contemporary dance.
It's contemporary dance. The orcs aren't as gruesome as they are acrobatic.
I said earlier, would the orc battles be contemporary dance? And they were.
They had to be really in a way, because there aren't that many of them, are there? I mean, they haven't got, like, thousands of CGI orcs, you know, the way the films did, so...
There's 9 of them instead of being 9,000. Which I expect.
We did get some comic relief, I'm glad to report. We got from Pippin and Merry and Treebeard. We got a good... I mean, they summarised that plot. I think they managed to concatenate Helm's Deep and Isengard all into one single
the second
sequence.
By about 35 seconds.
Yeah, but actually that's pretty good, because I think that if you're not going to be able to stage battles clearly, which you can't in that sort of way, then it's wise to kind of just not have too many, because there's a lot in the books.
I did think the battle run went for twice as long as it could have. I think once we saw what was happening, they sort of...
Yeah. It did sort of slightly bother me that it was possible to take Isengard with about 5 flags. That was the bit that slightly bothered me. That was all you needed, the military strategy. I've written some other things here, actually. Earlier on, at the beginning of Act 2, we go to Lothlorien and we meet Galadriel, who undergoes her test and diminishes and passes into the west and does all that stuff. Well, she doesn't pass into the west yet. Some strong Eurovision hints, I thought, in her number.
That's very... Well, actually, you know, I thought she was...
I thought after The Lady of the Lake, it was quite difficult to take... We're beginning again, I'm afraid. So I'm afraid we have to go for a bit. We'll get back to you after Act 3. Booming reception there for The Lord of the Rings at the Drury Lane Theatre. End of Act 3. Any reactions, Nick?
I couldn't help thinking throughout the whole show, if you're going to have songs in it, either make it through composed,
yes,
or don't have any songs at all. And I couldn't help wondering what the use of... I didn't... You know, they were singing songs, email loud, lewd, lad, lad, and I didn't understand what the heck they were saying half the time. I didn't know what the point of some of the songs were.
Those are the English ones. We had the spider, the fantastic spider Shelob. A bit Doctor Who, I thought, but not... I mean, obviously Doctor Who has pretty good effects.
We have to talk about Gollum's entrance. Incredibly imaginative.
Yeah, he crawled on across the proscenium, or it wasn't the proscenium, but the front... the thing that they had at the front.
Got a round of applause.
It did, yes. One of the things that was particularly impressive about, and again, just going back to the technical stuff, the fact that those hydraulics were going up and down, there was some really split-second timing there. Was it Laura Michelle Kelly as Galadriel, having to really time her jumping from one block to the other, and very, very neatly done. I was very impressed by the split-second timing on those. We had a bit more, I thought, moments of genuine sympathy as well from Smeagol in the second half.
Between Frodo and Sam, they had a little moment, I thought, and a little song was very nice.
Smeagol was British and Gollum was American.
Yeah.
In his voices.
Yeah, that was.
We had this whole interesting sort of where they had to split across the two things.
No end of the act number though.
No, I didn't think that was missing. To be honest, by that time I was pretty much ready to the whole thing to finish.
A bit like the movie, it had 18 different endings, and you just...
Well, they cut, thank goodness, they cut the whole Saruman Sharky stuff, they cut all of the Return to the Shire. I mean, I'm glad there's a lot of stuff that they could have done. They even cut some of the latter stages in Mordor on that final battle.
We were lucky enough to, after the show, find a member of the ensemble, and we asked him some questions about getting used to the technical set.
Hydraulics, well, we've been in since January, really, haven't we? So it's been quite a few months, really.
So you started in January and then, gosh, so that's been quite a lot of rehearsals.
3 months, a lot of rehearsals, a hell of a lot. It's a very, very technical show, as you can see. So safety is, is one of the most important things.
How long was it before you actually started to actually rehearse stuff with the hydraulics?
We actually came here, because when they fitted the stage up, we actually came here and we did a lot of work actually on stage for 2 weeks, and then we returned to the rehearsal room and started again there. So it's just to get a feeling of the stage and any problems and that sort of stuff. Not to hold us up when we come to text, really, so we can whiz through it.
Did it whiz through in text? Was it reasonably smooth?
Really, really, really good. Better than what we thought, really.
And the choreography, was that long rehearsal period before even...
Yeah, very creative process. Yeah, very creative.
Lots of elements of modern dance.
Very modern dance, very individual sort of character. We've got a lot of improvisation type things brought into it. How would you be as that sort of, that sort of concept, really.
The lighting was extremely tightly planned around sort of the moves, so presumably that came in a little later.
And the lighting just blows me away. I absolutely love it. I think it's incredible. I forgot to say that because I think hand on heart, I really do think it's amazing.
Presumably it's keeping you fit?
It's keeping me very fit. I'm not size 0 yet, but we're aiming for that.
Fantastic job. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
We also caught up with some audience members to have a quick chat with them.
My name's Jill. Okay, so Jill, you from the States by any chance? Okay, whereabouts in the States?
Portland, Oregon.
Okay, from Oregon. So you thought it was a little long. Why?
Because it was.
Because it was, okay. So you're enjoying stretching your legs outside?
Very much. It's been a long day. We saw Wicked, we got caught in the subway, we did a lot of things today.
So you've actually seen quite a lot of the best British stage technology today. How did it compare to Wicked?
I loved Wicked.
Okay.
It's the fourth time I've seen Wicked, so I love Wicked.
Okay, So what were your general impressions of the show?
I liked the special effects were great, the staging was wonderful, I just thought it was long. I liked the music. It was just too much dialogue maybe, and it needed to move a little quicker.
Yeah, what about the songs? Did you enjoy the songs?
I like the songs. I couldn't sing any of them for you, but I liked them. I like the music itself.
Yeah, very Celtic kind of music, which I enjoyed.
Okay, yeah, good Celtic music. Did you ever see the films? Did they compare?
No, actually not. No.
Did you think that helped?
I think it. Yeah, I think so. Although I think I understood the story, but I think definitely seeing the film or reading the books, which would be nice. But yeah.
Okay, good. All right, you're taking a holiday over here, I guess. And,
yes, a theatre holiday.
A theatre holiday. So you've seen Wicked and Lord of the Rings today. What else?
Yesterday we saw Spam-A-Lot
and Sound of Music.
So
okay. So Spam-A-Lot. I thought of Spam-A-Lot a few times during this show. I know that was The Lady of the Lake and Galadriel.
Right,
and
it's true. I did Cirque du Soleil too as they were coming down. It seemed like there were a lot of things that were. And Tarzan.
Yeah. Okay.
And with the jumping guys were like the jumping monkeys.
We're derivative of other shows.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks very much for giving us your views. So what's your name?
Lucilla.
Okay. And you've just seen the show. So what did you make of it?
Well, it was amazing. The music was great, and the visually it was awesome. Like the stage, all the movements, all the so perfect. I couldn't see anything wrong on it, and looked very hard. All those people wearing all those crazy stuff on their feet and stuff. It's very amazing.
Do you see many musicals?
I do musical myself, like for 10 years. But yeah, I do watch a lot, and it was great.
Did you think it is a piece of musical theatre? They've kind of said it sort of isn't a piece of musical theatre. I mean, it looked like it to me. What did you think?
I think for me it's more like a theatre that has some music on it, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not a musical, it's more like very good theatre but with some great music on it.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
nice.
sure.
Okay, so we've now repaired to the bar, and where we can gather our thoughts a little bit about this whole experience with Lord of the Rings.
It really was an experience more than a musical, I think.
Well, this is the spin. The spin is that it's an experience, it's a spectacle more than a musical. I have to be honest and say I thought it was a musical. There, I've said it.
A NAF Las Vegas show, didn't you? That was.
It is quite Las Vegas-y as musicals go. It's more like the sort of Las Vegas version of Phantom than the original.
Well, I actually thought that after the second act and the third act, it was kind of like a 1980s musical with the lighting. You know, when Galadriel was on a sort of podium and this big gold light was behind her. It was, what was that, like Camelot or Arthur from like the 70s or 80s in New York. It didn't really speak to me as like a 21st century musical, except for what Nick was saying during one of the breaks, which was the spectacle of it all, which is the 21st century, go to see something that can combat a movie.
Reminded me a lot of Cirque du Soleil. I mean, that is 21st century, and I think there were elements, I mean, even with the orcs and the way that they use kind of different animatronics and different ways of, using their bodies, that was very Cirque du Soleil. So in the moment, in a sense, I don't know, it was a musical with spectacle qualities.
Certainly Cirque du Soleil meets The Lion King, I think. I mean, we were talking earlier about what hydraulics we've seen before, and that the main gimmick of the show, to call it the main stage revolve, is very similar to The Lion King, the fact that sections can raise up and go down and twist. And
some comments on the third act. One of the things that I really felt throughout the whole thing, actually, and I think this is kind of an endemic or a sort of intrinsic weakness of the approach, or indeed of choosing to do this as a stage show at all, really, it's just that they cannot show the story, because so much of the story is actually just it's a series of battles, isn't it? And that's kind of effectively what you've got. And you get a certain campness because they can't do it. They have to stylize it. You have to sort of show it through dance. And I put here on my notes, I put Shakespeare battleitis, in all those Henry plays and all the histories you've going on. There's someone dying behind me, but that's all right. It's just an orc, I expect. Yeah, you have a series of reportage sections, basically, where people run onto the stage and say something's happening over there, and then there you go. That's what's happening. What did you make of the spider?
One thing again I like about this show is that it's all very theatrical. There's no attempts for it to be realistic, and you could plainly see the puppeteers controlling the spider. And of course the lighting helped immensely, and I can't remember the bit.
They did a little bit of trying to disguise those guys in like a blackout, and it didn't really. I don't know if it came off.
I think you're meant to see them though. I mean, I think it's all meant to be, as I was saying earlier, it's all lots of use of material in the show for set pieces. I mean, people say the set is amazing, but really there is no set. There are no set pieces on stage, it's just platforms that go up and down.
Yes, well, I mean, that's definitely a set. I mean, that's kind of pretty big set, the set's going. One other crit I had of the third act was that they had this Lothlorien song that Galadriel sort of sang that... I don't know why it was there, really. What was it there? Any theories what it was there for?
Sharp Laura Michelle Kelly's voice.
I did get a sort of slight whatever happened to my part, Lady of the Lake thing going on there. I wasn't sure.
A very, very, very good singer.
Fantastic singer. We should praise the cast because it's whatever the conception of the show and the execution, some very strong performances in there. I thought Laura Michelle Kelly particularly.
Especially as well.
The guy who played Smeagol. So yeah, also a strong performance. We can't be absolutely certain who we saw because there's a double casting thing going on here, and at least two people play the parts and on different nights, so it depends who we saw.
I thought the cast did a really good job because it's really difficult characters, and you're convincing kind of I think a cynical audience, people who've seen the films, if they haven't read the books, and they've got to convince us in a long 3 hours of who they are. And so Smeagol was very good, very entertaining. Galadriel, really good sing voice, just superb. I do want to say about the spider though. In the show I was in and the Minac 4 years ago, we had a spider around the same size. The spider was around the same size as the one in the show, and sort of we made that for free. And so I wasn't as impressed with the spider as I was with the Balrog, who I thought was very good.
Think of the Mount Doom effect with Gollum falling into the.
Oh, I thought that was very impressive. Actually, that was the best bit of stagecraft in it, probably. Okay, I think we might leave it there and back to another Nick in the studio, as opposed to the Nick we have here.
I'm going to run to the studio now.
Okay, if you want more information about Lord of the Rings, you can visit www.musicaltalk.co.uk, and on the episode page for this episode, you will find a link to the Lord of the Rings website. I really recommend you go and see this production if you can to form your own opinion. And what I think was really interesting about our opinions is how they changed through the duration of our review. Now, Thos, Tim and myself are going to talk about the great musical that is Ragtime.
So why did you pick it? And what stood out for you? Good or bad, really, I suppose.
Listeners of the show will know I'm a big fan of William David Braun, who is the orchestrator for Ragtime and Wicked and Mary Poppins and Miss Saigon and Witches of Eastwick and Oklahoma and My Fair Lady in South Pacific.
And quite a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Interesting that it's the orchestrator rather than the composers.
I also like the composers. I like Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Owens, famous also for Seussical and Once on This Island. But it's really, for me...
Which only played once on this island.
Well done.
In Kingsway.
For me, it's orchestrations that make up a song, because you can have something on a piano and, it sounds nice, but if you have a full symphony orchestra playing it, you can get a feel of style and feel of emotion. Justin once said to us, you can't do sustained notes on the piano unless you hit the sustain pedal, which...
No, or you wiggle your fingers up and down on octaves and stuff like that.
Yeah, anyway, that's beside the point. And the orchestrations in Ragtime are brilliant.
Yes.
They won the Tony Award
deservedly
for best orchestrations that year. The songs are just stunning.
Which I'm trying to think in the second half, the songs, I mean, if we were going to just do, maybe we'll just talk about the whole thing, but I mean, in the second half, I think the songs are maybe a little less...
It gets very dark in the second half.
Yes, that's right. I mean, in the first half, you get things like new music, you get things like...
but it all comes back in the second half very effectively as well.
Yes, I mean, it's starting to integrate some of the material, so you get things like Coalhouse Demands. And
you got that one motif which is littered throughout.
And Atlantic City's in the second half.
Yes, and also Atlantic City is a song I like. Then it goes into the Buffalo Nickel Photoplay Ink, which is another good song I like.
Actually, there are a lot of... I mean, this is a very obvious observation, but there's a lot of upbeat ragtime tunes. You tend to think of the second act as ragtime, as you say, as being where it all goes dark.
But you need the breaks between...
You've got the baseball game, you've got Buffalo Nickel and so on.
Atlantic City, which
it's gliding in in the second half.
Yes. Yeah. What do you know about it, Thos?
Tim and I saw it together, and indeed a friend of ours was in it. So he was playing Tattoo, was it?
Tate,
yes.
So Tate.
Yes, he was playing a potato, and very good it was too.
Spud.
I remember enjoying the baseball number very much. I remember not liking the nights. I think it's the Sun remembers going to see, was it Goldman speaking?
Emma Goldman. The night that Goldman spoke in Union Square.
I didn't like that number.
No, I'm afraid that is the only thing that...
It has a good jazzy bit in it, though.
Oh, poor young rich boy, and then it has a rather rude word, doesn't it?
Yes.
But
masturbates for a vaudeville tart.
That's correct. Yes.
Does it say bother rich?
I think I have to be honest though. One of the things, I mean, I knew the novel actually before I saw the musical.
By
the novel,
Doctorow.
E.L. Doctorow, and it's a very, very different proposition to the musical. I mean, I think Ragtime works very well if you know the novel. If you don't take Ragtime the musical as a serious attempt to adapt Ragtime,
I mean, I have
because it isn't.
It's a new piece.
You know, the fact that they make sort of that tiny reference to masturbate before. There's a whole scene in which the guy hides in a cupboard while Emma Goldman is there with the girl who's the lady friend of Stanford White, the girl on the swing. What's her name? Her. And yeah, I mean, it's considerably more involved than even the musical.
Answers on a postcard to Musical Talk, Free Pros 20.
But the Emma Goldman number begins, it was winter in New York as the snow began to fall.
Yeah.
And it's always it's just a slightly
the second winter
contrived lyric.
The sequence I like is in the opening. You got this whole, you got the brilliant 10-minute opening number, and that's the thing for 13 hours.
Which is absolutely superb.
Very good at its big opening numbers.
Yeah.
But then you have Goodbye My Love, Journey On, The Crime of the Century, What Kind of Woman, A Stetler's America, Success, His Name Was Carlos Walker, Getting Ready Rag, and Henry Ford, all in one musical scene, which is the way the whole thing is structured, really. You have these huge 15-20 minute sequences, then you have another 15-20 minutes, which is why...
Sections.
Which is why I like it. And
it's a good way of actually keeping the applause back a little bit as well.
Yes, but then you get a big applause.
Exactly, yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, I think in this case, definitely.
Yes. Although it didn't run for a huge amount of time, did it, in London?
It
ran for a bit,
but that was. But to be honest, that was a smaller scale revival anyway. It wasn't the full. I mean, I happened to be, and one of my great regrets in life is that I was in New York in 1998 when the Sam Mendes Cabaret was running, and I didn't see it, and Ragtime had recently begun running. I think I was there in September. Didn't see that either. Well, I went to see the Seven Deadly Sins and Carmina Burana at the Lincoln Center instead.
Which show really held Ragtime back? It was The Lion King.
Oh, I see.
It was released at the same time, and that won the Tony.
Okay, right.
Is the success of one show enough to stop another succeeding?
Well, Ragtime flopped.
It does influence where a lot of the money's going, I guess.
Ragtime was a very, very big show.
Yes.
Big sets. Yeah. In Forbidden Broadway, it famously said, big as a barge, everything's large, la 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 large.
Yes.
But the question is, if it's been revived so quickly, which of course it was both on Broadway and again in the West End, lesser productions, but obviously some people think there's merit to it. So was it considered a flop, or did it just not do as well as?
Stephen Schwartz says it's one of the most best and important musicals of the 20th century.
Agree. The London production was where they certainly spent a lot of money on it, but where a lot of that money went, visually speaking, was into the very large band that they had.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly how many pieces they had in the
35 or something.
It was a very, very unusually large size.
Which it needs because of the orchestration.
Totally. And it was totally justified, and it really worked.
It needs a huge orchestra, doesn't it?
Yes, unquestionably, which of course, that's what they provided there. The set itself, by comparison in the London production, a lot simpler.
Very clever usage of that set. I thought the set design was really quite a masterpiece. They had a rising gantry and all manner of bits and pieces which used the space economically without...
and
whether
actually,
it was expensive,
in terms of the main performance space, just chairs.
Yes.
And they used extremely, intelligently.
It's like a workshop production.
Actually, yes. I mean, but I admire that because I think, if you can do a lot with not too much, I think you're really succeeding as a piece of theatre instead of trying to make a piece of cinema.
So like Sweeney Todd, this has proved that this is a musical that can work on a huge scale and also on a very intimate scale as well.
Other than the orchestrations, but having said that, it is a ragtime piece, and the origins of ragtime is in these bars, and it's just on the piano.
But there's some very nice piano writing
and
in the score
I don't see why it shouldn't work, out of that context.
Numbers I like, numbers I listen to again and again till we reach that day, which is a very powerful end.
Yeah, that's sort of revivalist hymn.
Also,
protest song.
Well, what is it you like about it? Is it the music? Is it the power? Is it the lyrics? What?
I like emotional gospel music, and I think there's a bit of an influence of gospel in here, and there's lots of blues, and there's a huge, big choral ending where the orchestra just stop, and you just have this gorgeous chord progression, which always sends shivers down my spine. Sends shivers down my spine even, and it's just everything comes together. You have different motifs and counterpoint. It's all very powerful, and also numbers I like. Wheels of a Dream, which is the big. I
know. I don't have clearly these are extremely brilliant numbers, but those are the ones that for me, again, perhaps in light of the novel, felt just a little bit too musical theatre, and a little bit too bombastic. And the ones that I really went for are the sort of comic vaudevillian ones, such as actually Henry Ford, I think is a brilliant number, and the baseball game.
Well, but actually, those sorts of numbers you have to keep short because that's kind of part of their punch.
They are punctuation.
And the baseball number and so on. But even the girl
Henry
on the
Ford
swing,
is another one I would have
Crime
said
of the
that I listened, and Crime of the Century is very good as well.
But beyond that, I think the best number of all must be New Music, because it just takes this emotional journey out of this tremendously, simple material, which is the whole motif of the entire piece, the da 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 dun da dun da 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 dun. And that I found immensely appealing. In fact, I think it may have been the first thing I heard of it, because I think they televised a concert version.
Also, Your Daddy's Son is very good. That reminded me of Caroline or Change in a way, with the sort of.
Well, it certainly is a very powerful. Again, it packs a lot of emotional punch, and those are the ones. And indeed, Tate's Gliding.
Yes.
Although that's a little bit more cheesy, really.
And it's interesting. We talk about composers writing motifs. But also what Bill Bond, the orchestrator, has done is he's used for each character there's a different orchestral sound. Like for Harry Houdini, you have the sort of circusy glockenspiel.
Oh no, sorry, that's the girl on the swing.
And the girl on the
so it's chromatic run, isn't it?
The girl on the swing has a sort of violin for her, and Tata has a sort of
a clarinet, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's with the bent notes and the sort of klezmer style,
and the klezmer as well. And it's interesting. Stephen Flaherty, he had such difficulty writing the Jewish style music because all he could come up with, "If I were a rich man."
Yeah, it's easy to do it in a very cliched way.
And so you really need to listen. It's the orchestrations that make it sound Jewish, not really so much the melody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are moments in A Shtetl is America, for example, where the harmonisation and the out of its modality or whatever it is that it makes it...
and also, this musical does what America loves and makes America great.
Yeah, that's actually the big...
Doesn't it also show the underbelly of America being a bit rotten?
Well, this is actually one of the... from the point of view of the novel, this is one of the things that I think I can imagine somebody who knows the novel well getting a little bit justifiably annoyed by, really.
Like you.
Well, to be honest, I was prepared to buy Ragtime the Musical as a separate
piece, yes.
Exactly, as a separate deal from the novel, because they are very different.
Separate,
and, I think although clearly the characters and the plot and stuff like that are all shared, fundamentally the treatment is just different. And I think you're right. I think Ragtime the Musical is about sort of saying it's the land of opportunity, and Coalhouse Walker has turned, despite the fact that he ends up with a very bitter ending, it turned into this kind of, I'm a black man in America, but actually I believe strongly that, America... And that is treated very sentimentally and very uncritically, whereas in the novel it's a whole other story. His expectations of his rights come into conflict strongly with Willie Conklin.
The dark underbelly of America is expressed when the immigrants arrive, and it's not what they expect it to be. They don't have china plates and they don't have apple pie, and it's all...
That's not really... Yeah, yes, it is. It is just... The corners are knocked off of that sort of environment in the musical. In a way that I think is totally in common with musical theatre practice, but yeah, I felt a little ambivalent about that.
It is a cracking listen, almost operatic in its...
Oh, totally.
Way, and not many musicals come on 2 discs. It really is an impressive thing when
there's
about 40 songs in that thing.
There are indeed 16 on the second disc and 21 on the first.
Yeah, so it's really...
Plus a symphonic suite at the end, as a little bonus, which is great. Very Gershwinian.
The symphonic suite is absolutely really huge credit to Bill Blond there.
Yeah, there's if I were going to pick out certain songs that I think show the sort of slightly more Broadway influence, you've got things like Our Children, and that sounds to me like a sort of classic Tisch School type of writing. They may be listening, maybe they would dispute that, but anyway, you know the kind of thing I mean. Like you listen to that and think, oh yeah, that's a musical theatre song. If I heard that.
It's hardly of the era of ragtime.
Yeah,
it's a modern archetype.
Yes, it sounds more poppy, but on the other hand, when you go back to things like Harry Houdini, Master Escapist, New Music, and so on, those are the ones that really just are absolutely flavoured with the period, and succeed. I think you have to have a bit of both, but
and the opening too, how it blends all these, and the opening you can do a whole episode on, because it just
really is excellent,
blending all the characters, all the not so much motifs, but the different variations using instruments of the show's motif.
Sure.
Just starting with the piano, not too fast, like some people play ragtime. Some people sort of do ragtime. And it should be very, very slow. And Scott Joplin...
It can be very slow. It doesn't have to be. You say it should be.
Scott Joplin always had it slow.
But that's not the only way to do it.
No.
Let's be pluralist.
Let's be fair. I mean, Scott Joplin, but also Winifred Atwell. Different artists have different approaches.
Floyd Kramer, yes.
But I don't think you can just say because one person who's integral to the beginning of it...
One of the things that I do actually like about, Stride and Ragtime is is the fact that you can be extremely fast ragtime. In fact, you can take it to almost an absurd degree.
Yeah.
And you can have, a sort of sense of the ridiculous, and it does actually...
Like your Pretty Little Thing.
It's like the whole sort of Keystone Cops type of, cinema, piano, and there's a sort of connection between
diminished sevenths.
Yeah, the old diminished sevenths. Yes, exactly, yeah.
If you have any questions about this episode or any other, you can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk. Next week, we will be featuring an interview with George Stiles and Anthony Drew, the writing team of such shows as Mary Poppins, Honk, and Just So. They've recently been nominated for a Tony Award for Mary Poppins, which is fantastic. So do join us for that episode. We actually conducted the interview at the offices of Cameron Mackintosh in London. So here is a teaser interview, not with George or Anthony, but with one of the receptionists at Cameron Mackintosh Limited. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week.
We're here in the reception of Cameron Mackintosh. We're on our way to interview George Stiles and Anthony Drew, but we thought we'd have a quick word here with Andrew. Andrew works on the reception here at Cameron Mackintosh, and I just want to ask him what the experience is like of being here every day, dealing with presumably some well-known faces. Who have you met here?
I don't think I've really met an awful lot of particularly interesting people like that. We get a lot of people calling in all the time, sort of just asking to speak to Cameron or something like that. Or we get people coming in to audition and so on and so forth. But basically, they're just ordinary people who happen to do interesting things. You kind of got to treat everyone the same, no matter what's going on.
Presumably you have some techniques, people might phone up, be a bit cheeky and say, I want to talk to Cameron Mackintosh now, and it's really urgent. So do you have ways of dealing with that?
Well, you put on your best receptionist voice and you say, hold on just one moment, and then you double check whether or not it's actually okay. Like, most of the time you'll recognise people who are calling in, you can kind of tell, and you recognise their names and so on. But you do occasionally get a few random people trying to talk to Cameron who have absolutely nothing to do with him whatsoever. So you basically just develop sort of like quick tactics for trying to get past things. Just keep them talking long enough to try and find out what they want, and so on and so forth.
How does one audition here? Do they have audition rooms? Or?
Well, occasionally we have sort of callbacks and things like that. So most of the normal auditions are done sort of in theatres or audition rooms outside, but occasionally, because there's a bit of privacy here, we do have rooms where people can come in and audition and people can see them there. So it's quite nice. You sometimes get the strains of people belting out bits from Les Mis from behind the desk and things like that. So it's quite a musical place to work, funnily enough.
Are people, so you get a lot of the music. Presumably, is it sort of controlled and you have to sing stuff from Cameron Mackintosh shows, or are they a little bit more liberal about that?
Well, to be honest, I don't really know how the casting process works to an extent. I think, I don't know really. I mean, I presume that in first round auditions it's the usual sort of 16 bars of something. After that, I think it's pretty much something from the show.
Great, Andrew, thank you very much indeed for giving us your time.
This has been a production of Musical Talk. Copyright 2007.